Welcome to God Answers Prayer. I'm Linda Tiano, your host, and want to just thank you for being a part of Sun Broadcasting with us, being a part of our family. We had done a program with Greg Zanetti and decided that we needed to have more time to talk about what's going on with our currencies. How do we look at things as believers? How can we be prepared for what may be coming? And why is it so important to press into the Lord at this time, more than ever before? So we're going to be right back with Greg right after this. Well, welcome back. And Greg, we were moving along and talking, and you were talking about the BRICS nations, right, and currencies.
Well, I was talking too much, so I ran over time. Typical Greg. Yeah, we were talking about war. War and finance and money and war go together. And we kind of covered, Israel's mindset, Ukraine's mindset. How is all this playing out?
Exactly.
All right, but there's the financial war. So those BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, they've now added, 5 or 6 more, another 30 are joining up. It's an alliance against the West, but it's not a military alliance, it's a financial alliance. And what they want to do is they want to take down the dollar. And so how are they going to do this? Well, they see what we're doing. We're printing trillions. And this violates Scripture. We're not supposed to be going massively into debt.
Right.
And indebting future generations. God hates it. Plus this printing of money, as you print dollars, you debase the currency. And that debases your work without your permission. It debases your retirement. Well, that's unjust weights and measures. You're not supposed to do this. We're supposed to have honest currency and honest citizens, and it works well.
Right.
So when government cheats on the currency, you know what the citizens do? They start gaming the system. They know something's wrong, and they can't quite put their finger on it, but they'll take advantage. They'll sign up for programs they shouldn't. They might cheat on their taxes, and then the government finds out. So they want to clamp down. And you get this spiral down of mistrust.
Yeah.
And that's really where we are right now. We don't have any trust in our leadership, in our institutions. I don't know many people who trust the media, left or right.
Right.
I don't know if we trust the education system, court rulings, our military anymore, politicians. When trust breaks down, societies begin to break down.
Our foundations are crumbling.
And this is what BRICS has seen. The BRICS nations have said, we need to have a currency that people can trust. So we talked about it in the last episode. Supposedly 40% backed by gold, 60% backed by a basket of the BRICS currencies. Here's how they sold it to the Middle East. It's fascinating. They used the Quran. Here's what the imams have been saying, or the mullahs, as they've gone through the mosques for decades. How come the West lives like they live, and we live like we live, when we have all the wealth? Allah is mad at us. He's not mad at the West for being clever. He's mad at us for being stupid. We are trading our God-given wealth, oil, in exchange for pieces of printed paper, electronic digits. He said, we're not trading value for value.
Right.
And in the Quran it says to have fair and honest trade, value for value.
Right.
Right. So the BRICS nations went to Saudi Arabia, Iran, all the United Arab Emirates. And by the way, they joined BRICS last year. And they said, tell you what, we will trade you value for value. This new currency called the unit, which will be backed in part by gold, you're going to trade your oil in something tangible, value for value. And Allah won't be mad at you anymore. Right. See, there was a spiritual element to this that has great sway in that part of the world that the West is totally blind to. So could this have happened if we had been more honest with our currency? Probably not. But because we haven't been, now the door is open. So what's their goal? Again, if the world doesn't need dollars to conduct trade, demand for dollars will be going like this. Supply of dollars, well, we're just printing trillions of them. We're about 36 trillion in debt right now. And the interest on the debt is now over $1 trillion a year.
Wow.
But we can't even comprehend this number. And so what's going to happen? We're hitting the debt wall. We want to reset. By the way, China needs a reset. Japan's in debt up to here. Europe has got war on the doorstep. They're in debt up to here. They all want to reset. And so what does that mean for your viewers? How do you get through this when you're likely going to see massive currency devaluations? Because, go ahead.
Well, isn't this judgment? In a sense, I mean,
Yeah.
because, I mean, just like you were talking about the unjust weights and measures in Islam,
Yeah.
they got that through the Bible. They
Right.
they got
Oh,
that
yeah,
from Yahweh.
absolutely.
You know, and that's going on in our country.
Right.
People don't know, you know,
I know.
what to do.
And people are going to say it's judgment from God. Well, yes and no. I mean, He gives us the rules.
Well, yeah, exactly. And then he has to judge us because we didn't keep.
Yeah, yes, there are natural consequences. If you do this,
That's
this is going to
right.
happen. I've given you these instructions. And so, you know, oftentimes we say, oh, well, we're not under the law. Well, okay, I get that, the rabbinical law and all. But, you know, a lot of that was just a father talking to his children.
You bet.
Saying, do this, don't do that. Do this, don't do that. And your life will be better. Now, you have free will. You don't have to obey your father's instructions. You can
Right.
be in rebellion. But there will be consequences. But don't always point the finger up at me. Hey, I told you what to do if you didn't do it. That's on you. And so we've drifted pretty far away from God's law. Can we come back to it with respect to our money? Yes. Is it going to be somewhat painful? Yes. And so how would a Christian navigate their way through this? Well, in my view, there are three kinds of wealth in the world. And wealth and money are different things. The really rich people in the world, they don't talk in terms of money.
Right.
It's always wealth. Three kinds of wealth. There's spiritual wealth. It's the most powerful of them all. But you
Right.
can't really write a check, and I'm going to talk about tithes, but you know, to God, he cashes it and go, okay, you're good. So let's just come down to our level. There's wealth from the earth. I want you to think of the stuff God made. Oil, gas, timber, copper, iron, gold, silver, aluminum, tin, lead, cows, chickens. It doesn't change. Iron ore is iron ore. 10,000 years from now, it'll still be iron ore. Same with cotton and soybeans, right? But there's another kind of wealth. That's wealth from human hands. And he made us too. Taking aluminum and making an airplane. Wealth to me. So is my car, so is my cell phone, so is my computer. All that stuff. Well, what you'll find historically is wealth isn't necessarily destroyed. Wealth moves. During times of optimism, creativity, look what we can do. No one wants to invest in coal. Greg, that's boring. I'm not part of that. All right, when you take all those good qualities, the enterprise, ingenuity, hard work that it takes to get there, that God put in us, and you push those to an extreme, those good qualities become greed. It's what we do.
Oh,
And whether it's 1929 or flipping houses or .com or Bitcoin, I'm going to get rich doing nothing. It always fails. And when it fails, the human-y side starts to come down. But the wealth moves and the whole mentality changes. I can stand on my land. You can't print gold. You got to eat. You got to have water. I don't need no iPhone. And they're right. That also speaks to something very good in human beings. Prudence, discipline, looking ahead, conservatism. All right, that's all good. Push that to an extreme. You'll end up at abject fear. Guns, gold, groceries in your bunker, waiting for the apocalypse, and the government's going to come get, oh, come on. God says what? 365 times in Scripture, fear not, fear not, fear not, fear
Right,
not. One
right.
for each day. But this is what we do. We go from fear to greed and greed to fear, back and forth. And it's our money that follows it. So it's the human that starts it. The money's just a reflection of it. Where have we been? Oh, greed. When you've got billionaires argue about who can be the biggest billionaire, and everybody's judged just by money. It used to be if there was an amazing teacher, if he or she walked into the diner, oh, that's Mrs. Jones, she's the best teacher, blah, 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 blah. Or the plumber or the mechanic. Man, Fred really, he can break apart a, and you were held in esteem. It wasn't all about money. Not today. You're judged by money. That's a problem.
Yeah.
It's not about who you are, it's what's your checkbook look like. And here's what you hear, well, if Fred's so great, how come he's not a millionaire? It's an indictment against our society, not against the expert in these other areas. So that's failing. And what you're seeing now is the uber rich, what are they doing? Buying farmland, right? What's Bill Gates doing? Mr. High Tech reads math books for fun, cloud
Chinese
computing.
don't beat them to it.
Right? So here is wheat and soybeans and sweet potatoes are pretty far from cloud computing, Bill.
Yeah.
What's going on here? Central banks. Think about this. There are only a few central banks in the world of any importance. The Federal Reserve in the Americas, it's the only one we've got. European Central Bank, Bank of England, Bank of China, Bank of Japan, Bank of Switzerland. They're your motherships. And in the last 2.5 years, they've bought 3,000 tons of gold. Wait. Fellas, your product is dollars, euros, yen. If your product is so darn good, why are you buying gold when you tell us not to?
Right.
Because they see what's coming. The only way you can pay off debts, only a couple of ways. Well, in today's society, you can just print it up. Just pay 36 trillion in debt. Just go to Jerome Powell. Hey, Jerome, print up 36 trill. Can we do that? Yes. Oh, Greg, that'll never happen. It's happening right now.
Yeah.
So you debase the currency. That's one way. The other way to do it, just default. You just say, we're not paying. What does that look like? No more Social Security, no more Medicare, no more military retirement, civil service, no more welfare checks. Nobody wants to do that. So what's going to happen? The politicians are all going to take the easy way out. By the way, it's both sides. Nobody's addressing this, even during the campaign. We're going to print until the currency goes boom. Then the fingers will point at everybody. We'll blame the Arabs or China or Pelosi or Trump. And nobody really understands how it works. And so the politicians will try to get off scot-free. So this is what's playing out right now. So what can you do? I would say invest in the things that God made. That would be the right thing to do now. It's not forever.
Right.
Because he also made us. But for now, it's the season for that. And I can't give broad investment advice. I'm just saying this is what we're doing for our clients right now. So anyway.
Yeah. And that's good. I mean, and really, I mean, if you will go before the Lord, if you'll get into his word and begin to read his word, there's so much instruction there. I mean, the book of Deuteronomy, I think I had shared this before. Deuteronomy chapter 8 is a great chapter about, I mean, he's the one that gives us the power to acquire wealth. And like you said, wealth and money are not always the same thing. You can be wealthy because you have a lot of children that are wonderful. You can be wealthy because you have learned how to use the gifts that the Lord has given you, not for greed, maybe for sustenance for you and your family, but to help others. So there's so much more to it. And we're going to be back with more with Greg right after this. But first, I want to let you know, if you're worried about anything, call us. Let's pray together. Let's see what the Word has to say about what you're concerned about. Because he says in his Word, I will perfect those things that concern you. So give us a call. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. We're here with Greg Zanetti. And Greg, we've been talking about all the good news out there.
That's why nobody invites me to birthday parties. It's sad. Don't talk to him, Margaret. He's going to talk about the Federal Reserve.
But I think most people by now are aware that there's a lot of stuff going down and they're scared. Yeah. They're worried, and yet it's we can't be like Nero and just keep partying,
Right.
while Rome burns. But tell us a little bit. I mean, we were just talking about the banking system.
Right.
And there's been a lot of information coming out for those that are willing to read it and look at it. I mean, a lot of people don't pay attention to finances. They just, they get their monthly check, they put it in the bank, and
Right.
they're not concerned about it.
And it's all based on trust.
Yes.
What we're seeing now is trust is breaking down. And we talked about it, I forget which segment it was, but do you trust your government really watching out for you or watching out for themselves? Do you trust the education system, the media to give you honest answers? People are going, I don't know who to trust anymore. So I call it the trust horizon is getting shorter and shorter. We used to believe people in Washington, D.C. were really looking out for us. Not so much anymore. Or that the media out of New York was telling that, you get the idea. But now we're down to who can I really trust, even in my family? We don't even know who to talk to anymore because we're all like this right now. Anyway, in the banking system, and everything's predicated on trust. And what's happening is the trust is breaking down amongst the banks. So what caused it? Well, we got a couple of problems. One is when we hiked interest rates really fast a couple of years ago, what happened was the government bonds, the government securities, were paying more interest than CDs. So if you were Joe Citizen, you go, wait, my bank is going to pay me 1.5% on a CD, or I can invest in a treasury bill at 5%. And they started pulling money out of the banks, but it wasn't like 1929 where they were lined up and everybody could see it. You could just tap on your screen.
Yeah.
And this has been going on for a couple of years now. Money's been leaving the banks by the billions to go to the government because the government's paying higher interest. So that's one problem. The second problem was the collateral at the banks, the assets of the bank. So let's pretend that a bank made a loan on a shopping mall, or maybe one of those giant high-rise buildings in Houston, and then COVID hit. Right. The mall now is about half empty, or maybe it's just closed down. The office building, I don't know, maybe 40% occupied, 50% occupied. Linda, you can't pay your bills if it's only occupied to there.
Right.
But the bank has this mall or building on their books being worth, I'm going to make up a number, $150 million. Well, it's not worth $150 million. So the regulators come in and they say, hey, Joe, you got this cash run going out the door, and what you say is worth this is really worth this. You're not solvent.
Whoa.
Right. This is what we saw, let's see, in 2023 with Silicon Valley Bank. Uh-oh. And they had to race in with all kinds of patches and bandages to try to piece this thing back together. But it didn't change anything.
Yeah.
So the banks are dealing with this. Beyond that, the banks trade amongst each other. And so this gets really into the plumbing of the banking system. But believe it or not, banks loan each other money, sometimes just overnight. Just, hey, I need some cash, loan me some cash, I'll pay you back in the morning. Well, okay, we'll take your cash, but we want some collateral back just for the overnight. It's called overnight repo. Anyway, what we're seeing is the plumbing is jamming up. The last time we saw this in earnest was before Lehman Brothers back in 2000, started in 2007, and the stuff hit the fan in 2008. We're seeing the same pattern. And the Federal Reserve is trying to race in almost nightly to try to patch this system. So trust is breaking down amongst the banks. So what's going to happen here? My guess is we're going to have another banking crisis because we have violated God's laws, all the stuff we talked about in the previous segment. And so what will happen for your viewers? And what should you do? Well, first, don't have more than 250 grand at a bank, and most of us don't have more than 250 grand at the bank, but there still is the FDIC insurance. But go ahead.
Is it any good?
Oh, no. I mean, I don't have nearly the funds in.
So don't put your faith in that.
No, no.
Okay.
But can the government always just print up a bunch of money just so they don't have revolution? Yeah, which is probably what they would have to do. Of course, that would just debase the currency. Now, the other thing that will happen, at least if history is any guide, they will close the banks. This is what Franklin Roosevelt did in 1933. And he shut all the banks. He called it a banking holiday.
Yeah.
They even had spin back then. Oh, it's a wonderful time. Well, this happens today as well. It happens around the world. They close the banks. During that closure time, you need to function. So should you have, I call it cash on hand, 5s, 10s, 20s, 50s, it doesn't mean you have to have 30 grand in a safe in your wall, but you need to have enough to get through a few weeks, maybe a month. They can't leave the banks closed forever. It won't work. Just so you can go to Walmart, because what the sign in Walmart is going to say something like, due to the banking crisis, credit and debit cards aren't working. And by the way, the ATMs won't be working either. Cash only. Well, during that time, spend your cash. Tank up, get your groceries, this kind of thing. When they reopen the banks, your currency will have been devalued. And this is what Roosevelt did. So it's happened in America before. The country's gotten through it. And of course, our faith is always in him. It's not in the dollar.
Right.
At the same time, use your head. Look what's going on out there. They're not paying a whole lot of interest anyway at the bank. So if you pull out a few $1,000s, yeah, you're losing this much interest. But if you have crisis, you'll be able to take care of yourself, hopefully your family, and maybe some others who didn't think ahead like you did. Anyway.
And what about gold and silver?
Okay, let's approach gold first.
Okay.
First, when does gold first appear in the Bible? Gold appears before Eve appears.
Oh.
Gold's on the first page and a half.
Wow.
Every time I say that to my
Yeah.
wife, Teresa, she hits me in the arm. There it is, honey, Word of God, right there. And gold weaves its way all the way through. So here's the great paradox of gold. And if your listeners can grasp this, they're going to see how this system really works. Gold is a shiny yellow metal. It doesn't move a truck or a train. You can't eat it. It doesn't earn interest. You don't communicate with it. Warren Buffett, that really rich dude, he calls gold a pet rock. And he's right. So if it's a pet rock, why do we value it so much? What is it about it? Well, for governments, gold can erase debts. So remember, we talked about how central banks were buying gold because they like pet rocks? I'm going to take you back now to 1934. So this is during the banking closure of 33, Roosevelt took all the gold out of everybody's safety deposit boxes. Then gold's $20 an ounce. He revalued the gold to 35. He raised the price. Here's why it's important. I want you to picture scales. On one plate, you've got gold. On the other plate, you've got debt. When he made his gold $35 an ounce, it made his gold on hand heavier. That made his debt lighter. With a stroke of a pen, he erased about 70% of the government's debt. It helped no farmer, no business owner. They didn't have any gold, just government had the gold.
Right.
Okay, why gold and nothing else? Because it's a pet rock. What if he changed the price of oil from $20 a barrel to 35 during the Depression? People said, are you out of your mind? You just doubled the price of gasoline, fertilizer, all these things. Off with your head. But if he raised the price of aluminum or copper or coal, anything with a use would have rippled through the economy.
Right.
When he changed the price of gold, it didn't change the price of apples. Why would it? Or gasoline or farmland or anything. This is why governments are accumulating gold to get rid of debt. So, should you own some gold? Yes, but remember, you're earning pet rocks.
Oh, we've run out of time.
Yeah,
But
sorry.
thank you so much for coming and sharing. You know, it's good to be able to laugh.
Right.
Laughter's the best medicine. But we want to thank all of you for joining us today. And again, please give us a call. The number for the prayer partners is on the line. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May He make His face to shine upon you. May He lift up His countenance upon you. And best of all, give you His everlasting peace. Shalom, shalom.
Thank you for joining us today on God Answers Prayer. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on our program, please contact us by visiting kchftv.org and click on Share Your Testimony. Our prayer partners are here to pray for your needs. Call us today at 505-345-4165. We appreciate your prayers and support. Join us again next time for more inspiring stories and testimonies. Remember, God is always listening, and He answers our prayers in His perfect timing.